Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Back to School, Creating Safe, Supportive Environments for Students with Primary Immunodeficiency. My name is Fiona, and I'll be your host today. Thank you for joining us from all across Canada for this important conversation in what is still relatively early time in the school year. If you do happen to know someone who missed this, just to let you know, this is a recorded session which will be sent to everyone who registered. It will also eventually go on our YouTube channel. Now, as you can imagine, children and teens with primary immunodeficiency face unique challenges at school, both physical and emotional. Today, we'll explore how families and schools can partner to ensure these students are not only safe, but fully included and supported. We'll hear from parents with lived experience, and there will be time for questions at the end. We'll also provide you with some learning lessons that you can take with you. Now, before we start, if you could all take a moment to think about the land from where you're joining us from. Immunity Canada acknowledges that from coast to coast, we are all guests on the ancestral territory of Inuit, Métis, and First National people. We encourage you to consider your own position and relationship to the land where you find yourself as part of improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures in a spirit of reconciliation. I'm sure most of you know who we are, but for those who don't, we work with individuals like yourselves to improve diagnosis, treatment, and the quality of life of Canadians affected by immunodeficiency disorders. A large component of our work is to bring awareness about the issues that impact our community. And this webinar focuses on our younger cohort, with an emphasis on how to prevent misunderstandings, communicate effectively, and create a safe environment. In other words, this webinar will spotlight what the key issues are and how to work with schools to optimize your child's experience at school. Today, we'll provide you with some real examples of parent and student interactions with schools, key concerns, learning lessons for communicating with staff, and how to create a safe environment for students as we start the new school year. We'll begin with Sanjay, who will talk about some recent encounters with kindergarten staff to prepare his children for their first year. After this, Andrea will talk about her experiences and learning lessons as her son starts his first year in the elementary school system. Unfortunately, our third speaker, Josiah, who is going to give a student perspective on high school, is unable to make it today, so we'll have to admit that perspective. However, Thunder will pull all these experiences and those from a focus group together to provide you with some evidence-based learning lessons on questions to our staff, how you could create a safe space for learning, and how to communicate with schools. We'll then have 10 to 15 minutes at the end for a question and answer session. Before we start, just a quick disclaimer. Immunity Canada events offer an array of presentations developed by health professionals, our members, and others who are invited to serve as presenters. The views and opinions expressed by guest speakers do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Immunity Canada. Information provided at events should not substitute advice from your physician or other qualified health providers regarding your medical condition. Now, we'd like to encourage everyone attending today to participate in this webinar. If when you're hearing a presenter and you do have a question, just pop it in the Q&A box or the chat at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to these during the question and answer session. And just a note about confidentiality. We're recording this session, but only myself and the panelists will be the people who are recorded. Let's begin by understanding what primary immunodeficiency is and how it impacts students at school. So, primary immunodeficiency, or PI for short, refers to a group of disorders where part of the immune system is either missing or doesn't work properly. For children, this means they're more vulnerable to infections, can get sick more often or more severely, and may need lifelong medical support. Now, in a school setting, that can mean they have very real consequences that include fatigue, a heightened risk of infections during cold and flu season, increased absences, and the emotional stress of feeling different. The start of the school year can raise parental concerns that include: will my child's condition be understood? Will the classroom be clean and well ventilated? What happens if other students come to school sick? What if they miss weeks of school? In this webinar, we draw on lived experiences from kindergarten, elementary, and high school to suggest that with the right planning and understanding, children with a PI can be helped to actually thrive in the school environment. In order to explore this, we have three speakers on our panel today. So if you can just turn on your videos. So in the first of our webinars for the winter season, we welcome Sanjay, Andrea, and Funda to share their stories and learning lessons with us. We're really happy that you were able to all join us today to share your experiences with schools and hear about what you've learned from them. So a big thank you to you all for joining us today. Now, first up, we have Sanjay, who will be talking about his experiences with kindergarten. Sanjay is a blood plasma donor, a stem cell donor, a patient advocate, Immunity Canada board member, and most importantly, a father of three to twin daughters and a son. His twin daughters, Zoe and Misha, were diagnosed with a rare primary immunodeficiency disease called chronic granulomatous disease, or CGD. Now, in search of a matched donor for his daughters and the 1,000 others in Canada waiting for a match, Sanjay has helped raise awareness about the importance of increasing both the number of stem cell donors and the diversity of the donor pool in Canada. So I'm just going to stop my share now, and Sanjay, it is over to you.
Perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Fiona, and good afternoon or good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, perfect. There we go. As Fiona mentioned, my name is Sanjay Prajapati, and I'd like to share with you my experiences with my two young children as they enter the school system for the first time. I'll start with some introductions, and pictured above on the top is the eldest of the two twins, Zoe, and below is her twin sister, Misha. And these pictures were taken last fall as they started their second school year in senior kindergarten at our local school. And their PID story is unique, like most PID stories. They have a very rare condition called chronic granulomatous disease, or CGD, and it's a condition that not many people are aware of. But in this particular condition, there were mutations that were formed in their neutrophils, and without proper neutrophil functions, their bodies really cannot fight any type of bacterial or fungal infection. And these are the types of bacteria and fungi that we come in contact with every on a daily basis. And one of the important distinctions I want to make as I kind of go through some of this material is that when we think about the school system and we think about different exposures that the kids are faced with, there are different types of risks. And kind of the important distinction I want to make is that the part of the immune system for them that fights off viral infections is actually intact, and it works. Unfortunately, they've had the flu, they've had COVID, and they've been able to recover like any other child. But the part of their immune system that specifically manages and attacks bacterial and fungal infections is a part that's affected. As with any child with PI, we had a number of concerns leading up to the first school year. And our first and foremost concern was just the indoor school environment, right? Let's face it, kids can be gross, and we were worried about the cross-contamination when it comes to the toys, the furniture, like any surface material that was within the environment, their school environment. And there were two things. One is the potential for viral infections, which we obviously don't want them to get infected with. But the second was bacterial matter on any of the surfaces. Throughout the day, the kids would play indoors. They would go back outside, play in the schoolyard, play in the wood chips outside. They'd play just in the outdoor environment, and then they would bring that back into the school and into the school environment. And so that actually was a very big concern of ours because despite having different footwear for outdoor, indoor, there still is some of that cross-contamination. And we just didn't know without us being there and watching them, how they would kind of manage that, and just a reminder to make sure that they wash their hands. The other challenge that we had was in the classroom environment as well as outside. There are different plants, there are different soil matter, and that's actually one of the biggest risks of infections for them, or bacterial infection, is through different plant matter and soil matter. And I put an asterisk next to B. cepacia because that's actually the infection that they were diagnosed with. So when they were first diagnosed, and they had their fevers, we really didn't know what was happening. And through a series of tests, we realized that they actually had a bacterial infection, a B. cepacia infection in some of their organs. And so then that led to the diagnosis of CGD. And so that is probably one of the biggest things we worry about is their exposure to different type of plant matter within their environment. The other concern that we had with this particular PID is just Aspergillus infection. So different types of fungi and fungus that's aerosolized in the air when you're playing in different environments. And one in particular is in playgrounds. So a lot of the playgrounds in the schools use wood chips to soften the ground, and so that those wood chips are actually just dead matter that have different types of funguses on them, and that sometimes when it is in the face or when it gets kicked around, some of the fungus can get aerosolized, and that's another cause for an Aspergillus infection, which can infect the lungs. Similarly, the kind of the biggest challenge that we had was just general kind of fungal infections, fungal pneumonia. When you're in the school system and you go through the different seasons, each season brings some good things and bad things. And one of the challenges with the fall is the leaves are starting to fall. There's big collections of leaves, especially when you're in a little bit older school. There's lots of mature trees, lots of forestry, and it's a challenge because that also is a source of different types of funguses. Anything that's dead and decaying matter is a source of fungus. And so that again is another challenge that we had to work through because that type of environment is a normal for the kids to play in when they're outside, but working with the teachers, we really try to figure out how we can find a safe space for them to play in. With all of these different types of concerns that we had going into the school year, my wife and I, we really were thinking, well, how do we approach this? How do we think about limitations that we have? How do we share those concerns and the different environments I just mentioned? And how do we really just move forward from there? So the first year the girls were registered for school, we actually met with the principal and the vice principal over the summer months prior to school. And we really just sat down, had a meeting to go over their diagnosis, their environments that are safe for them, that are not safe for them, just so that there's this high level understanding of these children have a PID. There needs to be some sort of adjusted environment for them. And as we got closer to the school year, my wife and I then met one-on-one with all their elementary teachers and any other resource that was part of their learning environment. And we again went through all the material. I think repetition is always key and being able to over communicate in these types of situations. And the I think it really helped because the over communication, constantly, acknowledging and chatting with them before and after school, whenever there were appointments, whenever we had anything to do with the hospital or they had to miss school because of appointments, we would always be emailing the teacher back and forth so that it just kept them top of mind and it just made sure that they understood, while, on a day-to-day basis, they seem like normal kids just going about their day. There are situations where if they do become sick, then they can go down this path, being in the hospital, being there for several days. And it's just a constant reminder that we have, that we'd like to have with the teachers. The other thing that we were also wanting to do was to provide equipment for the school. So when we met with with the principal and the teachers, we realized they did have materials within their school environment, but just for their own safety and just to make sure and be overcautious, we did provide different types of hand wipes, sanitizers. The girls have their own personal hand sanitizer and other wipes within their lunchbox, but also inside the classroom as well. And so even just providing some of these materials, like the school does provide some of this, but I think just to be better prepared and better equipped, We also provide some of this material for the school. Lastly, very linked to the first one around over communication is we're just always trying to create exposure. So we've actually invited a lot of the teachers to these types of talks at Immunity Canada, where there's different seminars. The girls have had an experience through Make-A-Wish, so they were able to understand kind of how that whole experience came about and learn more about that. And even through our own personal social media channels where we're talking about girls, their diagnosis, kind of what's next for them, the transplants that they've had in the past, and, raising the awareness for increasing a stem cell donor pool. All of that material, all of that content we've shared with the staff and the different educators just to make sure that again we're creating that exposure and we're keeping the girls top of mind. And I think when we think about what our objectives, I think the main thing was making sure that, first and foremost, they're in that safe environment. As soon as we met with the teachers the first time, they got rid of, I mean, there were only a couple, but they got rid of all plants in the classroom. There was a sandbox that they only took out in certain times and made sure that when it was out, it was only in a confined area that they could then clean up. They were really, really accommodating to the needs just to modify some of these environments. And we're a little bit fortunate in that the school is a newer school, and so their immediate environment outside of the classroom was all pavement, and there wasn't a lot of plant or other types of sources of bacteria and fungus. So that was just a bonus. And I think, the second objective for us was just really around trust, right? Like this was the first time we've let them be on their own, and we're trying to instill some of the principles around cleanliness, hand washing, and all of that with the girls themselves. But we also rely on the educators to make sure that when it's lunchtime, snack time, they're always washing their hands, their environment's clean, everything's wiped down. And so far, they're in their second year of kindergarten and they've been thriving and they love school. I think that's one of their favorite things is just going there and being there with their friends and their teachers, and it's really great to see. And that's the end of my slides.
Thank you, Sanjay. And next up, we have Andrea, who will be taking us through her experiences with elementary school as a mother. Andrea is debut author of In My Magical Bubble. So her full name is Paula Andrea Fernandez de Soto Abdul Rahim. She's a screening officer by day and a blogger by night. And she received her Bachelor of Arts in Advertising and Communication from Autónoma de Occidente University. In addition to working on her son Jacob's blog and being a dedicated mother, she was also host for seasons 2 and 3 of A Slice of Pie, which is a podcast sponsored by Immunity Canada. Andrea is a strong SCID advocate and enthusiastic board member. She's born in Colombia and now living in Canada. Paula is a lover of naps, music, and all types of projects. And Andrea, the screen is now over to you. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Rena, for that introduction. And I definitely lovely pronunciation, by the way. So thank you for that. Okay, well, my name is Andrea. Let me just kind of share my screen here. I'm gonna start with just saying that in reality, for us, taking Jacob to his first grade in school is definitely what we call making room to belong. That's how we wanted to call it for him. I will start talking about Jacob. So my son was born with a very rare genetic condition called ADA-SCID, which is severe combined immunodeficiency. He was diagnosed 10 days after he was born. And he has been, I mean, the first 5 years of his life had been completely in isolation with weekly injections or of enzyme replacement therapy. That's what they call. And once a month, he needs IVIG, which means that even now in school, he has to miss 1 day per month to go to hospital for his IVIG visit. In July 19, 2024, he received a stem cell transplant or what we call gene therapy at UCLA in California, thanks to Dr. Kohn, who is the pioneer of this type of treatment. And right now, well, thanks to that transplant 1 year ago, we can see that Jacob has a 95% of cell reconstitution, which is incredible. And it came with a lot of things, expectations and hopes, but also a lot of worries when it comes to going back to school just right after a transplant. I think that the conversation that we're having today with Immunity Canada and these webinars, I think it's an incredible thing. I think is very important. And why it matters? I think it matters because when we have children with primary immunodeficiencies or any type of medical condition related, we have new routines, expectations, and definitely the environments are very different for each of us. There's a lot of excitement. We were very excited to have Jacob finally in a regular setting, school environment, but there's also like a lot of uncertainty for the children and parents. For families with medical complexities, well, preparation goes beyond supplies and schedules. I have seen that there's a lot of things that we try to prepare ourselves, that the hand sanitizer, the wiping. How are we going to be able to control what we cannot control anymore? Because during all this time, what we have been, or Jacob has stayed in isolation, so we were able to control his environment, but now there's completely loss of that control. He's going somewhere, he's receiving class, I'm not able to be there to remind him of washing his hands, of being careful, not sharing things. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of loss of control, and it's very complicated for parents. I will say more for parents than for children. Part of the introspection that I have been done during this time is that having your child join school, is not about perfection. Definitely is not about perfection. For that reason, it's important to discuss with your partner, your family, what kind of plan or strategy. We definitely have to see that. Perhaps my suggestion will be worry less about the school supply and how to cut fruit with different type of shapes. That was my worry. Honestly, I was so worried. I wanted to have everything perfect for him, for Jacob. I was like, I am gonna be able to, for the first time in my life, I'm gonna be able to cut watermelon in a star shape. And that was my worry. Like, I want to make it fun for him. But when we enter school, I realized that those things, he didn't even care about that. So there were other things that I could care more and relax more on those little details that make me so stressed about. So I think it's for all of us at home was an emotional transition. For the kids is a lot of excitement. For Jacob was completely changed because he was going to meet people, enjoying activities. For us was the worries of many things. So what was our approach? Our approach was definitely divided in three parts. The first one is, how am I going to prepare my kid to join school for the first time? The second one, how am I going to prepare myself for it? And how I'm going to prepare his teacher. So this was our goal. Honestly, concrete goals, and each one of them had, those certain activities that we needed to do in order to have a better understanding for Jacob and for us to approach this new step. So the first one is preparing the child, not just the plan. So we did this through the child therapist path. We believe in our house, we believe a lot in therapy. Mental health, it is incredibly important in our household. From the moment that Jacob got diagnosed, we have been individually joining individual sessions, therapy sessions, or even couple sessions, but we also wanted to implement it in Jacob's pathway. I think that to prepare your son or your daughter emotionally to go to school, it's an incredible step that we should not miss. There are many things that we think our children are resilient about, but we actually don't know how many other things are in their mind and that they have to struggle alone because they don't know how to communicate those things. I feel that the child therapist has helped Jacob to name fears and expectations. I think it helps him build coping mechanisms for transition and uncertainty in his space, for course. Practice communication and self-advocacy in age inappropriate ways too. We can't deny that a child that has been in isolation for so long, well, one of the questions is the social part, the social aspect. How is he going to be able to relate to others his age? Is he going to be able to interact in a safe way? How is he going to be able to not defend himself, but somehow give others the understanding of his personal space, and all these things are kind of complex when you have a child who has a condition, a medical condition. So I think that therapy isn't about fixing the fear, it is about building confidence. And I think it's really important and necessary when we have children with medical conditions. Well, we go to how can I prepare myself? This is the part that I call belonging grows through connection. I did it in 3 steps. I joined the parent council. I joined the parent council because I really wanted to know how the school system works. It's my first time going to school with Jacob. I feel that joining groups like this will help me create visibility without confrontation. I have created relationships with staff who identify Jacob now, right? Because they know his story, they know me now, and it makes the process much easier when it comes for, like there are times where when he needs help with things, and people are able to help in an easier way because they know his story, they know what's going on. So I think it helps him too to have that connection with the staff. The second part that I did is read a book a week. I believe that in many schools, I'm not 100% sure wherever you are joining us, but here in Edmonton, where I'm located, they do read a book per week. And every parent can volunteer this activity, which is great. So when I had the opportunity, I took Jacob's book, I took In My Magical Bubble, and I had not just the opportunity to meet his classmates, but also the opportunity to read about his story, to discuss what is so important for Jacob to clean his hands all the time. It was a great experience for them to understand a little bit of the limitations that Jacob has. So I will definitely encourage every parent who has a child with a medical condition. You don't have to write a book to do this. Believe me, there's a lot of books out there that talk about invisible disabilities or any type of condition. You don't have to even make it like some medical thing, but it will give you an opportunity to kind of talk about your child and share something very neat with the kids. There's also volunteering activities like any other school. You have activities, field trips that you want to join as a parent. Well, I joined a couple of them just to meet the moms and parents over there and have that chat, one on one, and talk about the challenges and the limitations that Jacob has. And it has helping a lot because parents have, when you meet those parents, then they not just understand what's going on, but also they have this sense of compassion for the story that is behind the child. So I think it's a powerful way of doing it. I think that advocacy doesn't always start with a concern. It often starts with presence. And this is a really good way to do it. Here, this is a very amazing slide that I really want to show. I feel really happy to show this one. Believe me, I was truly lucky to be introduced to this type of information, which is the F words, thanks to Sarah Pott, who is an educator and facilitator involved with teaching, coordinated in Ken's child's family engagement and research, and also in Rare Kids Can. She was the one who showed me this type of information when Jacob was joining in September school for the first time. And I was so worried because I didn't know how to talk to Jacob's teacher and how to make her perhaps understand what was his story and how to help him out. So this is what they call the F words. And actually the F words were developed by Canadian pediatric specialists to help families, clinicians, and educators focus on participation, strength, and quality of life, not just medical needs. We see the F words. So we have function, what the child does in daily life. We have family. The family is central, not secondary. Fitness, physical and emotional well-being. fun, joy, motivation, and engagement. Friends, that is relationship and belonging, and future, which is hopes, goals, and possibilities. So this is actually tailored to your child. What I did literally is I fill up each square with information from Jacob, like if Jacob was talking to his teacher. Each one of them has a special concept, and it helps the teacher understand how is, like, I love to participate in sports. How can I do it? How is safe for me? What do I like to do the best? If I am and I'm in an important, like, for example, future, I'm in a part of a very special clinical research that might impact the life of others like me. So I might talk about medical trips, hospital visits, and anything related to hopefully become a doctor in the future. I might be more conscious of my condition later in life, and I hope to understand that my journey doesn't limit me. I think it's so important to talk about the F words when you're gonna start the school time, and you can literally make it and print it out. I did that, like print it out, and I took it on my meet the teacher night, and we had a little talk, and it was a great way for her to get to know a little bit more of Jacob and what he likes to do, and why Jacob will be probably talking about going somewhere, visiting the hospital, or being with different, like, like having IVIG days, or why did he came with an injection. So because he likes to talk about it too. Belonging is built, and we build it together. I think that this is my last slide for all of you. Even though my experience with Jacob in school has been very short, because Jacob joined last September, I must say that to make this a successful transition, it is necessary emotional support, which I will definitely say that a child therapist in your life, it will enrich not just the communication part with your child and their teacher, but also how to cope, the coping mechanisms to make it better. Community involvement strengthens advocacy. So your participation as a parent in activities, not just volunteering activities, but perhaps being part of the parent council to understand a little bit more and to create awareness of your child's condition in school. And share language that keeps communication clear and respectful between us and the person in care of our child, which means preparing the teacher and the teacher to understand the story behind that medical condition. As I said, or as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, Jacob has to be away from school once a month for plasma. And again, Jacob, because of his condition, he still doesn't have any vaccinations. So plasma is incredibly important in the life of, in the life of my child, because thanks to plasma, he receives all those vaccinations and he's protected even though he's in school with all these complex situations of having breakdowns, like measles breakdown and stuff, which is so scary for us as parents. And definitely the care and the concerns that we have of after 1 year of transplant. So that is all for me. I just have to say that when we make room to belong, we don't just prepare children for school, we prepare schools for children.
Thank you, Andrea, for taking us through that. And again to Sanjay as well. You're both very proactive in your approach, which, yeah, is something to be commended. And thank you for taking us through a school journey from kindergarten to elementary. Now, to put all this together, and there are some learning lessons from our panelists and also some other members of Immunity Canada who helped shape this webinar through a focus group. So I'm just going to share my screen again. And to do this, we have Funda, who is both a mother and an early education teacher. So Funda has been working in early childhood education for 20 years, actually probably 21 years now. She's also always shared a passion for inclusion and diversity. She lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia, with her husband and two children, pictured here with her daughter Zainab, who has common variable immune deficiency, and her son Effie. They're both with her now, I believe. Funda loves to make children smile by telling stories, and she wrote a book about her daughter Zainab to help her understand it's not a big deal to have CVID as a child. So welcome, Funda. It's now over to you to take us through some learning lessons. So I'm going to keep sharing my screen, and Vanda, if you can turn your video on, hopefully we can see you in a moment.
Hi everyone, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm Fonda and I have my beautiful daughter Zeynep here.
Hello.
With me today. So I really loved Sanjay's and Paula's presentation. I loved it. So some useful questions. I feel like they both covered pretty much everything. So just to, like summarize it. So we need to ask some useful questions before our kids start school, which I find helpful as an early childhood clinician, also as a mom. So first of all, I would ask teachers, what activities will my child be doing? What are they going to be exposed to? What is the general curriculum? What happens if another child in the class has a contagious illness? Are the children in one classroom or many? And what extracurricular activities is my child going to participate in? This last piece, extracurricular activities, is especially important if your child is attending before or after school program. So the second consideration would be to find out how much staff know about PIs and making sure that students are in good health. So we can ask, what do they know about my child's condition? Are they able to identify the early signs of declining health? How will staff be trained about my child's condition, and how will the confidentiality be handled? So I know like declining health could look different for each and every person. So I usually, when I first meet them before school starts, I give them a little folder about Zeynep with her picture in it. What is a healthy looking Zeynep? What could she look like when she is sick or getting sick? And also, school is really good for the confidentiality, handling the sensitive information. Each and every year before September, they ask us if that's okay to share Zeynep's picture with her info in the staff room in case if the main classroom teacher is out sick. So if a substitute teacher will be teaching that day, they would know who Zeynep is and what she might look like. And the third team would be to ask questions around how the school manages health-related issues. So we could ask questions like, what are the school's infection control measures? How is infection risk managed? Their sick policies, hand hygiene, ventilation. Do they have little hand sanitation stations and stuff? Also the water coolers and stuff, like, when she's like filling up her water bottle and things. Are there any alternative learning plans during outbreaks of illnesses? Can my child change spots if someone is coughing near them? Can they change classrooms if necessary? How will absences be managed academically and socially? And are there flexible options if my child needs to stay home? So from my experience so far, Zeynep's school has been very helpful. If there is an infectious disease happening, even in the school, doesn't have to be in Zeynep's class, we usually receive an email. Not only me, but like the whole school, the whole parents who's on the email list. It's not even just the infectious diseases. So a couple of years ago, we had an email about a head lice. Guess what? In 2 weeks, Zeynep had a head lice. And it was another layer of fear for us because we were like, can we use the regular head lice treating shampoo? Is she going to need something else? What if it's affecting her health and stuff? Fear. As parents, we always worry. But I really appreciated it because I was able to ask questions to the immunology team at the hospital. I received an email about a head lice. What if she catches it? When she caught it, we were well prepared for the lice. We had it twice in the last 2 years, by the way. So now we are experts if you have any questions. So again, her school is really good. If somebody is sick, sitting near to Zeynep and stuff, she can change her spot. They usually put her in an area with a window, like with a good ventilation system. And also sometimes they're running the air purifiers humidifiers and stuff to try to like keep the kids healthy. So the fourth and the final set of questions could pivot around creating a care plan for students with PIDs. So who is going to be my point of contact and what are the names of staff involved? So when I first meet with the teachers, like teachers and the school staff, I always want one person because I don't want to chase down every single person. I'm like, okay, so I'm the mom. I'll share the information with you. Is it okay with you if you're responsible to share all that info with the team? So we have a beautiful learning center teacher. She's always helping out with that part. And what are their phone numbers in case of an emergency? Not only the school numbers, but if they feel comfortable, I get their either office direct line or their cell phone numbers, which they're, again, like being very helpful. I know I can reach them whenever I want. Can we meet the teacher before the school year starts? I usually try to email the school like mid-August, and I know they are usually back by the end of August, just to remind them that, hey, we're going to be coming into the school. So Zainab is in grade 5 right now. So she knows most of the teachers, and she knows, oh, okay, next year so-and-so is going to be my teacher. And they have a really good system. So even when she was in grade pre-primary, grade 4, grade 5 teachers knew her. The other one is who is going to be responsible for my child's health plan. So when we have the little meeting before school starts, we have like a little draft. And then when the school actually starts, we have an IPP, individual program planning. It comes with the scenarios and stuff. So what happens before Zainab gets her IVIG? Zainab also gets once a month IVIG, just like Jacob. So each and every month, she's missing at least one day. So when she's back to school, there are a couple measures that we need to take. Like somebody needs to take her temperature just to make sure her body is okay with the new blood. Sometimes her body reacts, so they're making sure she doesn't have a rash and things. So we need like a contact person, a responsible person to implement the individual program planning, the IPP for Zainab. And usually learning center teacher, again, she's lovely, Miss Snook. She is usually in charge. And after her infusion days, Zainab wants to go to school in the last few years because we used to keep her home. She used to get the IVIG either Wednesday or Thursday, and we were just keeping her home until Monday. She's a little bit older. She wants to go to school. So when she goes to school on Friday, because we try to get it done on Thursday, she usually has an EPA, Educational Program Assistant, that's assigned to Zainab. That person, sometimes like she shares this person with other students who has different medical needs. This person is responsible from checking Zainab, checking her in and making sure that she's doing okay. There are times that Zainab gets very hot and there's like a little also a procedure that we need to follow, making sure that she doesn't have a fever and stuff. So each and every month before she goes back to school, I know who her EPA is going to be for that month. Again, learning center teacher is fabulous and she has a great plan. Who will communicate with me in case of a health event? I usually, if something goes wrong with Zainab, I usually receive multiple calls and text messages just to make sure. They're just like, I know so-and-so reached out to you, but also I would like to say her fever is still going up. You know, like I get like literally every 5 to 10 minute updates until I get to school to pick her up. And who supports, what supports are available or in place for emotional and well-being for Zainab? We have a beautiful school counselor. Again, unfortunately, unless you ask, they don't give them to you. So as a parent, when we meet in August, I have a list of questions and I'm like, can we get this? Can we get this? Can we get this? And if you can ask beforehand, if you give them enough notice to get prepared, be ready for you, they'll be able to make it happen. So Zainab has a school counselor, guidance counselor. She sees her regularly and it's been really helpful. So creating a safe space at school. So the second important learning lesson is, again, it is how to create a safe space within school for students with PID, both physically and emotionally. it doesn't only come with the physical part, there's also an emotional part. Physical safety, I think we all know right now. So infection control, hand hygiene, routine cleaning, good ventilation, remove sources of exposure to fungi, bacterial infection, indoor plants, policies around sickness and attendance. So the spatial accommodations. So when they go to the lunchroom to have a lunch with a zillion kids, we want to make sure Zainab has a clean space so her food doesn't touch other people's belongings. And so she has a placemat that we buy each and every year before school starts based on whatever her current interest is that year. So play materials, if they are doing math, the little math cubes, and she has her own set that she doesn't just randomly share it with the other kids from the basket. If they're doing something with clay or Play-Doh, she has her own stuff. We are trying to make sure that there's a good air circulation. And she also gets really hot easily. So she's usually sitting by the window. So school nurse and the custodial staff should be aware of the students' needs. We have a school nurse. Usually she tries to attend every September, mid-August meetings. And it's basically a consult base. If we have a question, we reach out to her. Other than this, she doesn't really come to Zainab's school. I believe she has 25 schools that she visits regularly. And Zainab is not a priority at the moment. We are so thankful for that. So discussing modified attendance or virtual access during peak illness seasons, that's also available for us. Teachers have been very helpful. They send her stuff like checking folders and stuff home. So we are able to know what is happening that week at school. And we can help her out. We can keep her home if we need to. And also considering extracurricular activities such as swimming. She really wanted to do swimming, but we had to wait until her immune system is ready for it. So we usually ask our immunologists if it's okay to do this and that, because right now she's in grade 5. Again, they have field trips. They're going swimming, they're going skating and stuff. We just want to make sure that everybody is aware of her situation and they're like helping her, supporting her. So she's older now, she's 10 and a half. Even though I feel like we still need that extra adult support to keep her safe. So emotional safety. So our kids with PID may feel different, isolated, or anxious at times. With permission from parents and students, we can educate classmates, just like what Paula did. Lovely, going to the classroom, reading a book. I'm also part of the PTA committee. I also volunteer at every single school event, like hot dog event, ice cream social, and so that I can talk to the other parents and educate them about what's going on in my life. So ensuring that other parents are also aware and how it might affect their own children at school. So when Zainab was a lot younger, when she was 3 or 4, she had a hard time. Maybe in a minute, maybe I can ask Zainab to give us some info about what happened. Would you like to share your experience when you were a little younger,
Yes.
when you were in pre-primary? What happened?
So, as a student, I could say, like, it's not easy until I'd done a lot of it at times. The people at school thought immunodeficiency was contagious, and they were like, oh, let's just not play with her then. And they just didn't want to play with me. They didn't want to touch me. They didn't want to touch the things I touched until my mom made the book Power, Power, Superpower. It explained that it's not contagious. It's fun for children all ages. I'm in grade 5, and I just read that book. It's September, and they're asking, where can we buy that copy? They really like the book. It's for like all ages. My mom loves reading it. It helped as a student. And then we're like on to the school part, like what experience we have at school and like how you can normally like, I'm thinking of the word.
So how we can
manage the
normalize the school life for you, because it's hard. You have to be extra careful with everything that you do at school. But little different than other kids.
There's always this thing like when I touch something, I always have to either go sanitize my hands or wipe my hands down. And the custodian always wipes down my desk. And I'm close to a window by a bookcase. So whenever I need to, I just go to the teacher. I'm like, Miss, I need you to open the window. She opens the window for me. and she does as much as she can for like me to feel well and safe. As school's a place your child should feel safe. If your child feels unwell, they should tell their teacher. I don't know about their symptoms, but like my symptoms were under my eyes, there'd be purple rings, I'd be really tired, I'd be groggy, I'd have flushed cheeks, I'd have spots on places, and it's really hard because like I couldn't understand, and sometimes I didn't want to tell the teacher. So I thought, oh, I can manage this on my own, but I just couldn't.
Well, thank you so much. Zainab can talk about it all day long, as you see.
I have 10 years of experience.
That's right, 10 years of experience. So yes, again, just like what she said, she needs to feel safe at school, both physically and emotionally. So ensure that other parents are also aware of what's going on and build and encourage a support network, empathetic students. She's in grade 5 and she's still reading her book. Also, there should be a safe adult. I feel like for us, it's Miss Snook, the Learning Center teacher. Also, there's a guidance counselor. They are like Zainab can always tell them how she feels, how life is going at school. Also, other students to realize the limitations of their illnesses and working with them. There are times that Zainab has to wear a mask, and they are still questioning it even after COVID. Even everybody wore a mask at a time. We are just trying to normalize things for Zainab and also for other students, because inclusion is absolutely very important. And also, let's talk about some best practice of communication. So it can look different for everyone, but I can mention what are some options and what work for my family. So have conversations with school staff prior to beginning of the school year, just like Sanjay and Paula also explained earlier. Using combination of personal verbal communication, follow up by emails with clear subject headings. I personally prefer emails because anything written is there. You're not going to lose it. You can forget about the words and stuff. So I email, then I text, then I show up, and I always follow up. Create a draft plan with diagnoses, limitations. Again, I have a folder for Zainab each and every year. I give it to the next teacher. If there are any changes and stuff, they're aware, because usually like the Tylenol, the ibuprofen doses that she takes at school, if she has a headache and stuff, it can change based on her weight. So I make sure that everything is updated in that little folder. With permission from parents, students, educating classmates in an age-appropriate way to help reduce stigma and foster empathy, reading fictions, cartoons, documentaries, and stuff, and expectation settings. Most people will be willing to help, but not everyone. There may be pushback and resistance from some. Why your child is getting that special treatment while mine is not. This can happen, we understand. Again, we need to normalize it. So stand your ground, explain your perspective, make sure the staff are aware that you are grateful for their cooperation and help. I know you're doing your best. If my child gets sick, everyone is human. There are times that staff also can get overwhelmed. Right now, it's the flu season, cold season. I know they are trying their best, but if they had to send her home with a fever, they feel so bad. They just keep saying, we're sorry. And we need to acknowledge that they're actually trying their best and we are aware. So other than this, if you're ever in doubt, please call us anytime. That's what I say. I always appreciate a phone call, update, email, text messages, anything different about her day. Because just like what Paula mentioned earlier, when she gets sick quick and things get
For a long time.
bad
Really quick.
very quick.
Like
So her temperature can go up from, I don't know, like from regular 36.6 to 40 in 20 minutes. So if you're ever in doubt, please call us at any time. It's really helpful. They never hesitate to call me. There are times that I get 4 or 5 text messages in a day. That's it. As a parent, those are the helpful information and helpful stuff that really help my family while we're trying to keep Zainab safe at school.
You guys are doing a good job.
Thank you, Funda and Zainab. And I'm sure our audience members who are parents will hopefully be making some careful notes on these important learning lessons. And as I say, this will be going onto YouTube as well. So in conclusion, work this out with our speakers. It's going to be a very short conclusion. It's important to remember that you're working in collaboration with the school as a team to support your child to thrive in this kind of environment. What we hope for is by sharing some of our panelists' insights and learning lessons is to have what you can see in these pictures. It's a successful outcome, which looks something like this. So with this in mind, let's turn to our panelists and move into our question and answer session. We're running a little bit over, so we'll probably have about up to 10 minutes. And then I will finish off with just a little bit of an update as to what to expect in terms of webinars over the next few weeks. So if you do have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to type them into the chat or the Q&A. And I've already got some questions that we have already, so I can make a start with those. I'll just keep an eye out on the chat there as well. So if everyone can turn on your video and your microphone as well. I'll see if I can get screen sharing. If everyone can turn your microphones on as well. So, first question for everyone. We've had Zainab's already answered this one, but what have your children said about their experiences at school as children with primary immunodeficiency? Have they said anything about?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely like I can see, for example, in Jacob's experience, one of the things that I mean, again, everything that it comes to the experience of the child, it depends of how much you want to communicate to them. My child is still very little, so I feel that for him, the condition is very big to still understand what he had to go through. But one thing that he communicates is the personal space. So because he has been during such a long time in isolation, now that he's in this new environment, sharing with others, he finds it really tricky to people coming up to him and wanting to hug him and touch him and all that. It is really complex for a child who has been isolated. So that was one of the things that I had to raise my concern to the teacher, send an email, get that communication and say, listen, Jacob is having a hard time with this part, how we can fix it together. And actually, it became a subject of 2 weeks where they had that conversation with all the kids as personal space. So that was actually really great because it's something that kids will learn boundaries and personal space, and it becomes something good for everybody. So it's not just it limits them completely.
That's a tough one for a little kid because hugging is one of those things little kids do.
I'll just add, similar to, I think Jacob was a little bit older when the girl, compared to the girls when they had their transplant. So we had hers at 18 months and Misha was two and a bit. So they're just, I don't think they fully comprehend the seriousness of the condition, the fact that they have a condition. They just know that if they get sick, they go to the hospital, but they don't really understand much beyond that. And I think one of the things they're just now, it's just becoming a norm, right? Hands away from hand washing, changing clothes when they come home. It just become a norm for them, right? Ever since they've started school, they don't know anything else. So I think at some point when they become a little bit more mature and aware, we'll share that with them, and or they'll start to understand why we do these things.
Thank you. Based on your own experience, what advice would you give to parents who are a little bit apprehensive about sending their children to school for the first time?
I really think that this goes to anybody who has a child with a medical condition, regardless the school environment. I think that we are always hesitant wherever we go. It doesn't matter that it's the school only. But when it comes to school, well, we have so many questions, right? How often they're gonna get sick, right? Because kids, unfortunately, we're not in COVID times anymore. And I do feel that we learn a thing or so of keeping a mask when you're coughing, but we can't deny that parents are going to send their kids to school sick. It's going to happen. There's no such thing as I will keep my kid. No, there's a lot of parents that they don't have a way to pay for childcare. They don't have family members here to take care of their sick kids. So they are going to send the kid sick at school. and or children who are immunocompromised are going to have to be there. So the only thing that I can, again, it's an environment that I cannot control, but I think that Jacob has had these talks and talks with us that please, when you go to school, if someone is coughing, don't let them cough on you. Please tell them or remind them to cover their mouth. Or if I see that there's right now we just passed December, and December was critical, right? Everybody's sick. So I will send during some weeks the teacher will send me an email saying, I have the feeling that there's a couple kids too sick in my classroom. So can we send Jacob with a mask? And I will do that. I will send Jacob with a mask just to kind of have a little bit of care for him. But I always remind him, try your best that people don't sneeze on you, don't cough on you. Kids don't understand when they are not, they haven't experienced medical conditions. They don't understand what is that. So you're going to see kids coughing on others. And you know what? It happens to us. Your child is going to get sick. And that's something that I always talk to my doctor or Jacob's immunologist. Something that we say is, let's worry when it happens. In the moment that it happens, in the moment that Jacob gets sick, that's when we are going to worry about. Yes, you can stress as much as you want, but in the moment that that happens, that's when we're going to be okay. What are the steps that we need to take after that moment?
So when I take Zainab for his IVIG appointments, there are times that, in the hallway and stuff, you talk to the other families, other parents and stuff. And if they have like younger kiddos, they ask, is she going to school? Are you guys homeschooling her and stuff? And I always tell them, you know what, like with an immunology problem or not, you're a mom, you're a parent, so you're going to be scared to send your kid to a big school. So I always tell them, be brave. And I agree with you, Paula. So you're going to deal with it when it happens. There's no need to worry now. Just send her in, give her that chance, and let's just see what happens. The other thing that I would like to highlight is embracing your child. So Zainab got diagnosed when she was 19 months old with shingles, which was very rare. Since then, we talk about it. We're just like, listen, you're a little different than other kids. You can get sick a little easily. Maybe it doesn't bother so and so, but you might get really sick with that one. Let's just be careful. So that's why she's here today. We are trying to empower her. We are trying to normalize it for her because it is part of her life. She needs to she needs to learn how to live with this. So I'm just going to say, be brave, send them to school. If it doesn't work, then plan B.
Homeschool.
Yeah. The having a controlled environment is what we're always used to up until that point when they leave. And that first day was nerve-wracking because that was the first time ever in their whole life where they weren't in a controlled environment, whether at home or hospital. And you have to accept the fact that you'll never have that kind of control and just accept it. And to Andrew's point, when something happens, deal with it then. But I don't know how much it gets through the kids when they're actually in school with the other kids and they're playing on the floor, they're playing outside, and but all the things we've talked about, all the strategies, all the things we've talked about today will help empower the teachers, help empower the child. So you just have to trust the process.
I just want to add to that specific question that when you are gonna send your child, when your child is ready for school, regardless the grade, I think your best ally also is your immunologist or your doctor. For example, we go back to the talk what I mentioned during my presentation. Jacob has no vaccinations, nothing yet. So you might imagine how concerned we are when there's a breakout in Edmonton or Alberta with the measles. And I'm worried to send him to school, but then talking to his immunologist is this conversation that yes, he gets his IVIG monthly, right? Which allows him to get vaccinations through that plasma, which is great. And that's why we need to find donors out there so much for plasma. But also with measles, like they say that there's an outbreak in his classroom. So the teacher will be always willing to text me right away if something like that happens. And then I will take literally Jacob to hospital that day. We'll have to communicate with my immunologist right away that day. And then he will get an extra dose of IVIG, which is special for measles. So those are things that will also help me calm down as a mom. I can work this out. I can take my child can go, and I can go the same level with him in terms of running this project of school and the concerns. So we can work it out. We can do it together.
Couple more questions. What did you learn not to do? In other words, what did you find didn't work for you when you were engaging and communicating with schools?
For me, being part of the parent council, I feel that realistically, there's a lot of things that you want to promote in order to create awareness to help with activities. One of the activities that I was part of and helped get a grant for a school was for mental health for children. But there are a lot of things that the needle is just not gonna go. So you have to be patient. And I do feel that it helps a lot to be part of the parent council or part of a board of anything related to the school, because somehow you're able to do a little bit more for your child there, but you also learn very quickly that there's a lot of things that they're not going to happen. You might want to communicate a lot of things about your child's condition, but there's a lot of things that they are not going to happen, and there's that communication is not going to happen. So you have to be brave and strong to acknowledge that this is part of your life, but it doesn't have to affect everybody. So you have to find a way of playing the game of I'm creating awareness, I'm helping out, I'm doing my best for my child, but not everything is going to go through.
Anyone else find there was something that you tried that didn't work?
I think that's a good question. I don't think there's one thing that didn't work. Maybe they worked maybe less effectively than others.
Mm.
And that's why just trying different things and communicating in different ways, being present in different ways with administration. And I think all the strategies that we outlined as a group, I think all helped. So, and it's maybe just situational depending on the child, the school, the environment, what works and what may not work for them.
Mm.
And I
Vanda, did
find
you?
I find worrying about things that I cannot control wasn't
Mm.
being helpful to anyone. So
Mm.
if I see somebody sitting next to Zainab in a school bus and she goes, you're waving, and the child next to Zainab is sneezing, I'm panicking. I want to stop the bus and stop the world and everything. You can't do that. Be realistic. So, just take a deep breath. And I talked to the bus driver the next morning. Then he's like, oh, so and so sneezed. Well, thanks for letting me know. You cannot control this. He's not responsible. He's responsible to drive your kids to school safely, not who's sneezing next to Zainab or who's coughing onto her face. So I think I shouldn't worry about the things that I cannot control. And it's going to be more peaceful.
I think sometimes there are things that don't work we can learn from just as much as things that do. It's not everything will work. So, and then finally, what challenges do you think your children may face at school as they grow older and progress into high school?
That's a great question. And I feel that that's something that I ask myself every single day, right? Because in my way of seeing his condition, in my head, there's a lot of challenges that I'm putting on him, right? Mentally, that's what I'm doing. But I can see that he has this personality and he's facing his own things, right? On his own. So I think that as Sanjay said, little by little, they're still not ready to understand that full capacity, their condition. I want him to, these are things that we're going to have to talk to them. I'm going to have to talk to Jacob about what is the extension of his condition, why we had to do all these amount of things. But I don't want him to, that his condition limit his abilities to do or experience life. That's something that I never wanted to have to happen to him. So I want him to learn, but to know that he's still capable of doing many things, that he's still capable of sharing. And I hope that the years of isolation and probably that lack of social skill will not make him be just a person who will just be quiet and give up when someone else has probably a stronger personality and wants to I'm not saying bullying him, but I'm just saying there's kids that have a lot of experience. They have siblings, they have a tough life interacting with others. Jacob is a lonely child, so I want him to be able to make up his mind, make his voice clear for others to understand him and to respect him. So I think that that's probably the biggest challenge that I think he might face. And that's why my job as a mom is to provide opportunities for him to learn the strategies to cope and to grow and to defend himself one day. So again, we go back to those things that I can't control as a mom, but I hope that with time he will be able to, whatever challenges that he face, he's able to work them out in a way just like anybody else.
I'll just maybe add something. If you know, it's a good question. I will never forget this. I feel like a lot of the conversations we have with medical staff I'll never forget. This is one of them. We had a secondary consult with NIH around prognosis, treatment options, all that sort of stuff after the diagnosis initially. And one of the things that the clinician in the NIH showed on screen, we were on a Zoom call, is this chart that had basically the time horizon and then level of infection. And it was this, and it went up like this. And we're like, whoa, why this sudden spike? And it was in that 18 plus range. And the response she had was, as kids, and this is specific to the CD population, but I think it could apply for all PID. These are kids that are now in their final years of high school, going off to college, and they're more independent, more influenced in good and bad ways, and they're just out in the environment a little bit more, and that kind of control that we've had as parents over them when they were younger resulted in that flat line of infections. And as the level of independence was there, that's when it went up. And it's just the reality, right? We want to make sure, just as Andrea mentioned, that we don't want their condition to be limitations. They're not supposed to be in certain environments, but with the right precautions, with the right precautions, they can be, but just not now. I can't trust them not to put their hands near their mouth or do things like that. But I'm hoping as a 20-year-old they can. I hope. But it's a good point that, as they get older, there will be a little bit more independence. There will be a little bit more influence within their circle of friends, their peers, relatives, whoever. And I think it's important maybe to, just as you educated teachers, it's also then incumbent on us to also inform and educate their own circles and peers and parents. And if you have close family friends or close friends who are friends with your kids, make sure that everyone in your circle and in their circle understands their boundaries.
I totally agree with both Paul and Sanjay. So, especially being more independent. So, right now, when Zainab is not feeling well, first we let her take her own temperature, then we check it, just so that she can practice and she'll know. Of course, she doesn't know how to interpret it yet, but again, hopefully by 20 she'll know how to interpret it properly. And I'm really hoping when she's in high school, and I wish Josiah was here to speak about that, when she's in high school or senior years, that other kids, other young adults will accept their condition and accept their modification in life, and they will still include them in different activities and stuff. Because this is something that, at least for Zainab, I've been told this is a lifelong thing, that it's not going to change. We have been told maybe not every 4 weeks of infusions, maybe down the road it could be every 3 months, but she has to live with this. So I really hope that she'll be surrounded by good people who understands and accepts her with all the modifications.
Thank you. And I am going to thank you to all of our panelists, and a big thanks to everyone who attended. I've just got a few little admin bits and pieces to tidy up with. Basically, if you're interested, particularly if you're a recipient of immunoglobulin, we've got a plasma supply update webinar on Wednesday, the 4th of February at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. This will look at the security of both Canadian and the global plasma supply. It will have an additional focus on the impact of the US tariffs on Canadian supply. We're also planning to do some more webinars this year, so do get in touch and let us know what you would like to hear about, whether it's more on artificial intelligence in healthcare, genetic testing and primary immunodeficiency, and any other subjects that are important to you. If you want to connect more and are a patient, parent, or family member, please come along to one of our community connect groups run by our amazing volunteers. We've got a brand new bi-monthly group that's just launched for young adults, and also a quarterly men's networking group starting on the 29th of January. So keep a lookout in the What's Happening for details and register on the events page of our website. If you feel motivated after hearing from our speakers today, get in touch if you'd also like to become a patient storyteller at one of our events or a plasma awareness advocate working with Canadian Blood Services. And as always, follow us on our social media channels for regular updates. If you aren't a member yet, sign up on our website. It's free and you can receive our weekly What's Happening newsletter. So all the best and see you again soon.